So when I proposed this talk, I didn't realize I was going to end up, oops, thank you. I didn't realize that I was going to end up condensing 4 years of horrible, horrible code into about 20 minutes of talk. I also didn't realize that I went in with the point of view of going about, hey, microservices are really cool, and then going, well, actually, there's a lot of hype, and to be honest, some of you are going to come out of here going, do you know what? I really don't give a toss about them. They're not that important. I also have no answers. It's brilliant, isn't it? You're coming here for a talk for answers, and I haven't got any answers. All I've got is, yeah, so go now. No, so basically, it works for me. It works in my situation. I'm hoping at least one person will leave here going, do you know what? This is the same problem I'm facing. Maybe I could give this a try. And then hopefully next year there'll be loads of talks about people that tried this and either had massive amount of success. Jonathan's looking at me. Or maybe like, oh, it was a complete disaster and I really wish I'd gone to a different talk. So, never mind the monolith. Here's the microservices. When I was talking to colleagues about this, we mentioned the word microservices, and some had heard it, some hadn't. They've heard me in the office talking about services, and really they are just services. One of the things I find very amusing is the fact that if you just stick micro on the beginning of something, suddenly everyone thinks it's this amazing idea, like microcomputers, it's just a computer. Microbreweries, it's just a brewery. Microcafes, it's just a cafe. And microservices, it's just a service. You know, and much as I love the guys like Martin Fowler and stuff that are advocating this architecture, and you know, they're going about, oh, it's got amazing scalability and it revolutionizes development, eliminates poverty, and the whole Emacs VI debate just goes, you know, it frustrates me, and they're just services, right? There's nothing special about them. And when you've got guys going, oh, but to do microservices, you need to have continuous deployment and containers, and there's probably Docker in there and bounding context, and you should be looking at domain-driven design and unicorns. Like, and it's just like, no. Don't. If you're tackling a legacy code base, you're not going to have continuous deployment, because let's face it, you've probably got no unit tests. You know, the last thing QA department wants is you just to automatically go through this amazing pipeline of no tests and then get deployed to live. They're going to be really upset. I know the guy at work, the Zola QA, would just go ballistic, you know, and probably our sysadmins would actually kill me if I did that. But there are a few things that services do allow us to do. They encourage loose coupling. They encourage smaller code bases. They also encourage DevOps. You know, the amount of times that developers used to go to sysadmins and go, hey, you know, we've been slaving over this for the last few weeks, and here it is, and we need it deployed tomorrow because the business is really expecting it. And, you know, it's followed by the sound of a sysadmin gently beating a developer to death in the car park, probably with an old router they found lying around. But to me, the most important thing is the fact it's actually one way to tackle a huge legacy monolith. This just hideous code that we find in all these different companies. And 5 years ago, I joined a company where basically we had a lovely PHP legacy code base. And oh my God. So, in the beginning, legend has it that we had one developer slaving away for 6 months. He lived under his desk, and he had the local pizza company on speed dial. And to be perfectly honest, you can tell, right? But the business, right, they saw this amazing product. It was wonderful. It did everything they wanted, you know, and there were unicorns flying over the top there. I don't think unicorns fly, but you get the idea. And, you know, the business was happy, the customers were happy, it was fantastic. As the IT department began to increase in size, the developers that took over him realized that, in fact, he'd built this. And that really is the actual product now. So after years of fiddling around with this and just realizing that you can't actually maintain this stuff, you know, you can move an oil barrel one direction and then you can just shove some stuff next to a seagull, and it's horrible. And basically, they wanted to do a rewrite, and there'd been loads of rewrites, and they'd all failed because basically no one had a clue what they were doing, because no one really understood the code base. So 5 years ago, a friend of mine started at the company. Just checking he's not in the audience. Good. He joined the company and he said, hey, you should come and join us because we're getting this chance to completely rewrite this code base, and frankly, everyone's there as a PHP developer and we need some Python support. So I said, okay, that sounds good, I'll come along. And we had this lovely plan. So there was going to be a lovely Postgres database and SQL Alchemy as an ORM, and then we're going to have Piston. This shows how a while ago it was. And there's going to be message queuing, and then on top of it, because we had PHP developers and they were a bit unsure about using Django or whatever on the front end, we said, okay, well, we'll use PHP. And then it's a very thin layer, and you don't have to worry about it. We've got the developers there already, and then the rest of us can start doing all the Python stuff. And it all progressed quite nicely. We spent quite a while restructuring the whole database. We had a lovely database written using Postgres. And we had SQL Alchemy, and there was a lovely ORM, and it all looked absolutely amazing. And it took us a few months to do that. And the business is just like, oh, so is it done yet? And we're like, no, not really. There's a database, and they're looking at it going, yeah, I have no idea what that is, go away. So we carried on, and we started implementing the top section, the API section. And that was going really well. And basically, we had lots of work involved over months and months and months, and then months and months and months. And meanwhile, the existing product is slowly being progressed by another team because this company wants features. And let's face it, you've spent a year already, and we need to help our customers out with all these new features. So of course, all those features then accumulate, and they need to be ported across to the new system. But meanwhile, that's all developing, and then you've got your other thing developing, and oh my God. And then you start to bring in consultants because the business is going, you know what? Brooks was probably wrong about that whole thing, and we should just bring in more and more people. And yes, they started going, is it done yet? Is it done yet? And we're just like, well, it's nearly there, we're nearly there, and they just got to do the front end bit. And we started work on the front end. And of course, that was PHP, so most of those now, all the other stuff, we're just like, we've got to learn PHP. So we're having to now start to learn PHP. Meanwhile, all the PHP developers are starting to do this very intricate web framework, which would then completely replace the existing site using our REST APIs, blah, blah, blah. And the business after 2 years went, no, stop. We're gonna put it on hold. Because we got all these great ideas, and to be honest, we can't be bothered putting more and more money into something, and we don't really know what's going on. But the developers are just like, it's okay, because it's 90% done. Right, all right. Look, that's what we built. It's fantastic. And the business goes, I don't actually see anything. What can we see? And you can probably see a burning pile of money in the background there. And it's just kind of like, this ain't working, is it? So it went on hold. And for some strange reason, I was allowed to carry on with it. So I started looking at what we can do as an alternative. And basically, the principles behind it were sound. Having this REST API, which replicated all the functionality, was brilliant. So I started looking at Django because, frankly, I don't want to touch PHP. And I was looking at Angular as well, so we started playing around with Angular. And it was all looking very good, but I don't know, it just didn't feel right. All that message queuing system was basically supporting thousands upon thousands of users, and we don't have thousands upon thousands of users. And to be honest, the SQL Alchemy was starting to annoy me because we couldn't do all the stuff we use with Django, like migrate and so on. So I started cleaning it up. And it was starting to look a bit simpler, a lot easier, but frankly, it's still basically, we've replicated the entire of that landfill, but in a new technology. So after 2 months, I basically went, this isn't going to work, and to be honest, the business is not going to pay another, I don't know how many millions of pounds trying to do it. So we buried it. We ditched it. Just, it went in a nice little sort of archived repo, and then we just don't talk about it. So anyway, there's a funny story about this. Like every part seemed to have some kind of Star Wars link, and I just went, oh, this is going to get really tedious. I'll just leave it for the last bit. So when we were doing the rewrite, someone jokingly said, you know what, it's a shame we can't just swap out bits. And we were finding that actually the architecture we built was just really inflexible. We were having so many problems adding new things, and we started to use it for another project. And that just ended up being a fiasco because we're trying to keep the compatibility with the old system just in case it comes off hold. And this new project wasn't very, very similar to it. It was just proving a nightmare. And as I said, someone just said, why can't we just swap bits out? You know, keep the bits we like, use different bits. And we even talked about splitting out. So you had a common section, and then you had a whole load of different bits depending on the project. So I started looking at this, and despite the fact it is just basically an absolute landfill, there is kind of a structure to it. I forgot to put WTF on there, actually. So there were sections to it. I mean, this kind of is a gross simplification, and also the fact is, like, you know, you start playing around with users, and then you find out that you can't send emails, and if you change the user survey, all of a sudden 2 customers who happen to have Macs can't log in, and then, you know, you change the database field, and then you find out some completely unrelated system now doesn't work. Usually involving the bosses then going, well, what's going on? And it's like, no, it's fine. We just watched it. So I was looking at this, and I've been playing around with services for a while. I nearly said microservices. So I was playing around with services for a few years with a few other projects, and I was just like, you know, the REST API, I like the REST API, that's good. And wouldn't it be really cool if we could find some way of just slowly putting in these services into the existing code base, right? So you have the PHP in all its glory, stuck there, and then you could just gently tease out little bits. But the problem is finding that feature. Right? I was looking at Codebase, I really just couldn't think of anything. And then one day the business goes, well, we've got this media. Like we deal with property data, right? So we have lots of property data uploaded every day, and we have a whole load of quality checkers. And what they do is they go through the data that's been uploaded by these estate agents, and they check it for quality, because let's face it, estate agents not exactly the most honest people in the world. I hope there's no one, I hope there's no estate agents here now, that's me ruined. Oh. But, you know, so your 4-bedroom apartment suddenly becomes a 5-bedroom apartment, or your 5-bedroom becomes a 4-bedroom because of some new legislation, or, you know, sort of that's really a study and not actually just a little pokey box and stuff like that. So our data quality checkers, they check all the different listings and make sure everything's okay. And to get to the point I was talking about was they upload photographs. And the estate agents, not the best people with photographs. So our team basically goes through them, removes the picture of a plug hole and you know, sort of a picture of someone hiding behind a door, and replaces it, you know, or cleans up the images. And the floor plans have usually got really horrid, mucky bits. So what they have to do is they have to download the photo from our website. Then they have to go and load up Photoshop, play around with Photoshop for a few hours, and then they put it on the shared drive. And this shared drive has a little Perl script. And there's no front end to it. It's just like they drop it in this Windows share. The Perl script, this magic Perl script, right? As long as it's named correctly, it will then put it on the right part of the file system. I'm convinced Perl is my COBOL, right? I'm going to be maintaining Perl scripts to the day I retire, right? It's just everywhere I go. Have you got a Perl script? No. You've got a Perl script, haven't you? Just a couple, just a few. And it's just, so this Perl script magically transports and does everything you need to do with these images. But putting a UI in front of that, so our team, because they don't need Photoshop and it's expensive licenses, all they need to do is just have a nice UI, drop the image on there, and maybe do a bit of editing. You know, just resize it or color a few things out or whatever, or change the darkness and lightness and stuff. You can tell I'm not really a graphic designer. But trying to implement that using the existing system is an absolute nightmare. I mean, you're just ignoring the fact that you might make the change to the media and now all of a sudden customers can't log in. Why? Why would that happen? But anyway, so I was looking at going, surgery time. Oh, I'm glad that did on a queue, actually. So I was looking at the media stuff. While everyone's coming up with these all fantastic proposals about how we can retrofit all this media functionality to the existing code base, I'm looking at it going, you know what? Actually, it's not that much of a problem to extract the media stuff, right? That Perl script doesn't need to be there. and all the serving up of images, you know, they're just doing resizing and a few things, and that functionality, you know, could be anywhere. It could be on a completely different server. And actually, after a bit of an examination, I realized it's trivial, well, not trivial, but it's easy to take that media handling out. And all of a sudden, I found that first way of getting into the code base and extracting something. And I presented it to the team just thinking, you know, they're going to go, oh, no, we've done this whole REST thing before, you're not going to do it again. And they looked at me and they went, do you know what? Considering the amount of effort and time and stuff that's going to be involved doing this, that idea is actually quite clever. And it really, I'm looking at it just going, well, it's pill, or pillow now. You know, and it's a few little extra bits. And then you've got an API, and we have nice JavaScript, because we've actually got someone who understands JavaScript now. They can just, like, plug that in. Easy. And amazingly, it was. We pulled out all that code. We rewrote the entire of the media handling in the new style with Django and Python and all kinds of goodness, and it runs on a Postgres database, not MySQL like we have at the moment. And it was just fantastic. We delivered the project on time, which I don't think I've ever done an on-time project before in my life. In fact, we actually delivered a week early, and we went, do you know what? We're going to hold off for a week. We're going to add a little extra bit of testing. And in fact, it's got unit tests as well. And we had continuous integration already, so it was great, because we could watch it going through the build. And we even got to the point where we thought, do you know what? We could actually do deployment automatically. We didn't actually do that, but we could have done. But it was just a fantastic feeling because we got this product through the entire process of development. There were very few hiccups. In fact, in 18 months of production, in being in production, it's had one bug. And we fixed that within an hour of discovering it, right? And deployed it within an hour of discovering it. Don't tell our QA guy, for God's sake, no, he doesn't know about this. He was on holiday, all right? Whereas to do a deployment, assuming, yeah, so I'm just looking at all the QA guys going, so it was just amazing just being able to do that, because the old code base, assuming we'd been able to find where the bug was, and it was probably, and if it's media related, it's probably in that bit sort of dragons down there somewhere, it would have been at least a week getting it through testing to be able to release it. So, and we didn't have to redeploy the entire website. We could just redeploy this one service. It was awesome. And then once we got that into production,